Thanks, Karen. So it's 2 o'clock. We'll get started with our meeting. So I'll officially call our meeting of October the 12th to order. And I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving weekend and enjoyed their turkey if you had it, and some fellowship with family. First item we have is the adoption of the agenda. And because of the supplementary agenda, I'm going to read the revised one. That the agenda for the October 12th, 2021 regular meeting of council be amended to include the following changes on page 6 of the agenda cover sheets. Delete the number 1 in the wording recommendation 1 and delete recommendation 2 entirely. Confirming bylaw to be numbered 99-12.
21, sorry.
Sorry, 21, yep. Yeah. And the supplementary agenda be passed. So I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. Okay, any discussion on the agenda as amended? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to disclosure of pecuniary interest on anything in today's agenda. I have none to disclose. Councillor Burke?
No.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor McCabe?
I have none.
Councillor Yake?
No.
Okay. So our next item is actually to, now that we've got the meeting started, we're going to recess it to deal with a committee of adjustment item. So I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the October 12th, 2021 regular meeting of council for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act. This is for Blue Grotto Global Investments, Inc. minor variance. So I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're recessed from our council meeting. And we'll just set that aside for a moment. And we'll move into our Committee of Adjustment meeting. Blue Grotto Global Investments, Inc. minor variance. Need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? Where did that come from?
What's happening?
I don't know.
Okay, because it just sounds like it's repeating your audio.
That's what
Okay.
I wasn't saying anything. I could hear something. All those in favor?
Okay, I'm gonna stop the YouTube recording. I don't know if it's that.
Where did that come from?
What's happening?
Okay, I'm gonna stop the live
I don't
stream.
know.
Okay, because it just sounds like it's repeating your
Ding.
audio.
That's what
Okay.
I wasn't saying anything. I could hear something. All those in favor?
Okay, I'm gonna stop the YouTube recording. I don't know if it's that.
Where did that come from?
What's happening?
Oh,
Okay.
okay, so we are not doing the streaming right now. Go ahead.
Okay. Are we back to normal now?
Sounds like it.
Okay. So I'll call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order at 2:04 p.m. And this is for application A13/21, Blue Grotto Global Investments, Inc. And I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest on anything on this agenda. I have none to declare. Councillor Yake?
No.
Councillor McCabe?
I have none, Andy.
Okay, Councillor Hearn?
No.
And Councillor Burke?
No.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the minutes of the previous Committee of Adjustment meeting of September 13th. We have a recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes of September 13th, 2021 for application A14/21 be adopted as presented. Any, sorry, I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, on to our application for today. This is A13/21. Again, Blue Grotto Global Investments, Inc. Location of the subject property is described as Survey Carroll, Lot 1, and is municipally known as 137 Smith Street, Arthur. The property is approximately 0.1 hectares in size. The location of the property is shown on the map attached. Purpose and effect of the application is to permit a portion of the accessory residential use in the side of the main commercial use and permit 72% of the ground floor area to be a residential use. The applicants are proposing to add 2 additional residential units on the main floor of the existing commercial residential use. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property and as well to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on September 21st, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, you able to give us an update on this one, please?
Will do, no problem. So good afternoon, public and members of council. So thank you, and through you, Chair. So before you today is a minor variance application to provide relief from section 16.3B and 16.3C of the zoning bylaw, which states that accessory residential uses in the C1 zone shall be located above or the rear of the main commercial use. And further, that where an accessory residential unit is located on the ground floor area of a commercial building, it shall not occupy more than 49% of the ground floor area. So planning staff have concerns with the proposed building configuration, or sorry, proposed floor plan configuration. In particular, the inclusion of a bedroom in the front portion of the building. So the intent of the central business district designation, as well as the commercial C1 zoning, accessory residential use provisions, is that the commercial uses are to be maintained at street level, and that the residential use is accessory rather than the primary use. So planning staff are in a position to support some form of reduction to the ground floor area. However, recommend that the front bedroom unit outlined in green in figure 2 of my planning report be included as commercial. And with that, I welcome any questions.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. I'll come back to that. I'll just go through a couple more steps here. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
No.
Okay. Any persons wishing to be notified of the decision must submit a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. And with that, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Do we have anyone registered to speak on this, Karen?
No one registered, but Darren, is John Vanderwoord, is he the?
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, John is the applicant's agent.
Okay, he's got his hand up. I'm going to bring him into the meeting as a panelist. Just give us a minute.
Thank you. Can I address the concern of Matthew?
Yeah, you can speak on the application. Go ahead.
Can you just identify yourself and who you're with?
Yeah, I'm John Vanderwoord. I'm from Vanderwoord Drafting and Design. I'm the agent for Blue Grotto Global Investments. So the reason we'd like to keep that bedroom area, which is highlighted in green, is it follows kind of the natural structure of the building. Okay. Also, the proposed use of the commercial on the front would be something in a medical type, physiotherapist type of thing, and they need a barrier-free washroom. And if you look at the plans, there is a barrier-free washroom, but we want to maintain the nice heritage look of the outside of the building. And if we have to put a barrier-free washroom in the front part of that, we will likely end up having to close up some of the windows or something, and it really wouldn't look great from the street. It would match the intent of what Matthew is describing, but it's a beautiful building, and we'd really like to maintain the heritage look of the house. Okay. Also, when they were doing some investigative, they were opening up a couple of walls. They found a beautiful old original fireplace in one corner, and they want to, it's got the old original ceramic tile and filigreed cast iron firebox. It's a pretty cool looking thing, and they'd like to keep that and expose it again, because I think it's been covered up for probably since the 60s or whatever. It's actually a pretty cool looking thing. So also, if we have a bedroom, we could reconfigure it a bit, but number one, we'd be too close to the property line to put a window in the side bedroom, okay? Because of building code and fire separations would be required. So that's kind of why we'd like to do that. Also, right across the street is a residential area. So yeah, we are zoned C1, agreed, okay? But right across the street is a residential area, okay? And in behind it, there's a residential area as well. And we're not asking to change from C1 to residential, but we would like to at least get some relief on the area, okay? And if we could even put that bedroom in the front at the one spot, we still have about 2/3 of the front would still be commercial as streetscape, but it's not like it's downtown core, if you will. So I think that's about all I have to say at this time. And
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, you just said you don't have anyone else registered to speak, Karen, for this one? Okay,
No,
so
I
then
don't.
we'll open it up for questions or comments from committee. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I guess this is to you, Matthew. Is this, and maybe you as well, Darren, is this a unique proposal or issue, or is this somewhat commonplace?
For you, Chair, are you talking about unique in terms of location, or I guess just?
I guess kind of, sorry, not so much the location of just what they want to do in the structure itself.
Like I said, the bylaw does permit the accessory residential use, and there's already an existing 2 units that are on the second floor. I think where it sort of becomes unique in the sense is perhaps the ask for the GFA percentage. Being as high as the ask is, I think that's the issue, and perhaps maybe the uniqueness of this application, in combination with the front portion of the building being part of that request. Typically, like I said, we see it either to the rear or above is somewhat of the standard. I don't know if Darren has more to add to that, but.
Through you, Chair. For a proposal to come, it's a little unique. However, we are getting a lot of calls for this type of renovation of existing houses or buildings that were built originally as houses back in the 1900, but they're within the downtown core. Yeah, so yeah, a little unique, but we're getting calls for this type of thing fairly regularly.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, comments? Lisa?
I think this message is, or question is more for John, if he's still on. Is there a specific tenant or type? I think you've kind of described the type of tenant. I'm asking the question because I know that it hasn't really been used as commercial in a number of years. And it is difficult to find kind of commercial tenants on the fringe, yet we have kind of a crazy, insane need for residential rentals in Arthur. But I'm just kind of wondering kind of what it's going to bring back to the streetscape and to Arthur with that tenant in there.
Yeah, there is a, if I can answer that, there is a
Yep,
tenant.
go ahead, John.
Sorry. There is a tenant that they're looking at to go in there. And that is a little bit of the, part of Father's Heart Ministry is wanting to use that. They do some social work, actually, as I said medical, but it's actually probably more social work in that front unit, okay? And that's what they want to use that office area for. And then the rest of it would be for tenants, okay, for rental units.
Dan, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wondered maybe either to Darren or Matthew, is the 72%, is that, if that number was adjusted down, would that make any difference? Is the 72% kind of a, I know that's what they're looking for, but in your opinion seems to be too much?
Through you, Chair, I think, yes, that's the message that planning staff is trying to convey, that, you know, we're willing to work with the applicant and his agent on, you know, getting some form of reduction on that percentage. But I think with this current configuration and proposal, you know, it's a bit too maybe high, given the front portion of the building being used for that residential use. You know, I think there is opportunity for some reconfiguration, and I know he mentioned the washroom, and perhaps, you know, their existing plan does show a washroom even behind that sort of section of windows that he's referring to. So, you know, perhaps it can go there. So, you know, like I said, we're willing to work with the agent on this.
Sherry, go ahead. I'll
Yes.
come back to you, Dan.
Okay, so I think John just said that the office space is going to be utilized by somebody else. So could that not be flipped towards the front part and be part of the commercial use? Is that a consideration?
John, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, it can be. We looked at it, okay, but it's not as efficient of use for the flow of what we'd really like to put in there. The issue is we would likely have to increase that area to about 75 or 76% for the change the commercial to 24, 25%. And so I was trying to make it more efficient to get what they want in that building, okay? And the flow seems more efficient the way I have it drawn. I mean, we could put that front bedroom into commercial and move the bedroom back to the other octagon bay out there, but then I don't have access to that barrier-free washroom, okay? Because we need windows in a bedroom. That's what the code says, okay? So that's kind of the dilemma I have, okay? You know, if we have to have the front fully as commercial, and if we could reduce the commercial area instead of being 51% to 25%, we could probably work with that, but it wouldn't be as an efficient use of the space in the home or in the building.
Okay, I'll go back to you, Dan.
Well, John's kind of answered my question. I was just gonna ask is he willing to work with the planning department to rejig or restructure the design to get that percentage down? John said he is, but it won't be as efficient or as they like, so. I don't know. I guess really the only way to get around it would be to have John go back and work with the planning department to see what they can come up with, if there's an alternative.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I've got a couple I'll add. So the planning recommendation is to reduce the amount of residential floor area being designated as residential. And I think the message I'm getting, and I just want to clarify this, is that the bedroom in the front office, of course, is going to be front exposure is going to be disruptive to anyone trying to sleep in that bedroom because of the commercial activity in front and going in and out of the building. And of course, it's going to cause some issues there. Have I got that summarized about right, Matthew?
Through you, Chair. So I don't know, like I said, I'm not sure about, disruption and that sort of being the narrative. I think there's really just opportunity to sort of capture the intent of the bylaw, if you will. Like I said, it's a commercial zone with accessory residential, and as planning staff currently see it, it's essentially residential with commercial accessory at this stage. So I think by eliminating that sort of green bedroom area and perhaps shifting it, perhaps instead of the back portion being a 1-bedroom unit, it could be a 2-bedroom unit with 1 kitchen. And then, you can still capture the full front area as being commercial. And then, like I said, retaining that sort of the intent of the bylaw, if you will.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question, and this is regard to parking. When we add additional residential units in a downtown core like this, do we have requirements for parking for those units?
Through you, Chair. Yes, we do. It's 1.5 units per residential unit. So there is opportunity on site, it appears, to accommodate the parking, but as part of the building permit application for the proposed renovation, they'd have to supply a site plan that would demonstrate adequate parking.
Okay, and I'm having trouble visualizing how that parking would be accessed at this point. Is there space beside the building to access parking?
The driveway is to the east side of the building off of Smith Street.
Okay. Okay. So from a process perspective, then, if I can go back to that, the version that's in the agenda here basically talks about granting residential ground floor area of 72%. If we want to pull back from that, how would we go about modifying that at this point? Or would we just defer this? Would we ask staff and the applicant to go back and work through this to try to address this? Or do we need to modify this? Just help me figure this out from a process perspective, please.
Yeah, so Curtis and I spoke about this. You can defer it if you're not happy with either 1 or 2. If you're happy with number 1, you could ask for a vote and a decision on just number 1 and defer number 2. But if you're wanting to defer number 2, it may somehow be tied into number 1, and if you approve number 1, you can't go back. So if you're not happy with the entire thing, and the applicant's agent has said that they're willing to work with planning, it might be better if the entire thing was deferred, but I am going to defer to Matthew and Curtis on that, to see if you're in agreement with that, and perhaps Darren too. From a process point of view, it would be, in my opinion, best to defer the whole thing.
Okay. So, yeah, do you have anything to add to that at this point, Matthew?
So through you, Chair, as Karen has alluded to, so I believe what she's referring to, number 1 and 2 is the relief being sought, which are hand in hand tied together, giving the front portion of the building and the percentage. So ultimately, at this point, I've spoken to the agent and made him aware that to have that percentage ready and available if council felt that that's, the route they wanted to take. And it's ultimately a matter of, if that's the case, just switching in the number at that stage, the percentage being requested, or as Karen had alluded to, ultimately deferring it. And then, perhaps John and I can find some kind of solution on that front. Okay.
So maybe we need to go around committee members and talk about exactly how you'd like to see this play out. I'm comfortable deferring this and asking it be sent back with hopefully find a proposal that doesn't include the front exposure and so on. So anybody want to volunteer to go next? And Steve?
I'm actually okay with allowing this to go through. I don't have really any issues with this at all.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, I guess I would support the deferral of it, just to see if there's another, if there's an alternative way. That's if, I'm not 100% opposed to the way it's laid out, but when I'm hearing from the planning department, they have some concerns. I'd like to see them just go back and see if they can try to reconfigure and make some adjustments and see where we end up there.
Okay. Sherry?
Yeah, I'm okay to have it deferred. I'd like to see if there's a way to reconfigure it to better align with the bylaw.
Okay, Lisa?
I'm actually okay with it the way it is. I think it satisfies a lot of things, and it's still going to fit into the streetscape, probably actually better than it does now. But I am okay to defer it too and look at options, but I am fine with it the way it is.
Okay. Well, that didn't turn out the way I expected.
So
yeah, I think broadly, the message to the applicant for sure is that we're in favor of trying to find a solution to this. It's just a question of whether this is the right solution or not. So from a process perspective, Karen, I think we're probably going to need to vote on deferral to see where that goes.
So just before we do that, Curtis, if the deferral doesn't pass, what do we vote on then? I think we ran into this one time before, and we want to get it right. So if you call for a show of hands to defer, that staff be directed to work with the applicant to bring back a revised proposal that is more in line with the zoning bylaw. That would be the staff direction, but they're going to vote on deferring this.
Yes, so I guess if the deferral failed, then would you still have the requested variances on the table?
So then you would vote on the variance that's on the table, and if that doesn't pass, it fails.
That would be my understanding.
Okay.
That seems, yeah.
Okay. All right. Does everybody understand that? Okay,
I think so. So do I need a mover and a seconder?
no, this is the same as you just asked for a show of hands to defer.
Okay,
To defer the item.
okay, and the direction to staff would be for the applicant to work with the staff to try to come up with a different alternative to present.
Is more in line with the zoning bylaw.
Right. Okay. So any questions on that recommendation at this point, that we're going to vote on deferral first, and then if that fails, we'll go right back to the original item. Okay, I'll just call for a show of hands. All those in favor of deferral?
1, 2, 3. There's 3 in favor, Councillor Yake, Mayor Lennox, and Councillor Burke. So the item is deferred. And
Okay,
the staff direction will show in the minutes.
okay, thank you.
Mayor
Oh,
I guess
Lennox,
that, yes,
just as it relates to the direction to staff, I understand the idea of making it more aligned with the existing zoning bylaw, maybe for the applicant and for Matthew. I heard front exposure as being key. What are the items that Matthew and the applicant are to be working on to address? Is it the percentage? Is it the front access for residential? Can we get any additional clarity from the committee on what it is that they're trying to address while we have them both here?
okay, thanks, Mike. Dan or Sherry, do you want to offer your thoughts on this?
Well, I would like to see the percentage go in the right direction, a little bit more in line with the bylaw, and also see if they can't get that realignment of that bedroom so that the front portion can be commercial.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, I'd like to just, I guess I would like to see a reduction in the percentage, just to see if we can get that down.
Okay. And yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I think a reduction would be favorable, and the front exposure, if it can be eliminated, I think would be a good thing as well. Steve or Lisa, I know you said you were happy with the application as it was presented. Do you have anything you want to add at this point?
I don't, Mayor Lennox.
Okay. Okay, so I think that brings us to adjournment. So a recommendation here that the Committee of Adjustment meeting of October 12th, 2021 be adjourned. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we are adjourned from the Committee of Adjustment. And we'll come back to our regular meeting of council. So I've got a recommendation here that the Council of Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the October 12th, 2021 regular meeting of council at 2:34 p.m. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. First up, after resuming here, is we have some deputations this afternoon, and we'll go through those as they're in the agenda. So first we have Andrea Sinclair from MHPC Planning. Andrea, are you?
I've just moved her in. Where do I see-
I'm here.
Okay, and
Good afternoon.
I've moved Jillian in as well.
No, Jillian, I think is just observing today. It's
Okay,
just me
thank you.
speaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Andrea.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor Lennox, members of council, staff, and those members of the public that are with us this afternoon. I do have a presentation that I will share. It's attached to the council agenda. And I'll just bring it up now. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Before I begin, I did just want to raise a matter that came to our attention this morning. When the current owners purchased this property, one of the conditions of the sale was that the previous owner extends services, including a storm drain from Waterloo Street. We just found out, and my client just found out this morning, that that work has started. They did not dictate that timing, and unfortunately, if they had known it was going to be starting, we would have liked to have gotten some correspondence out to the neighbors. But if there is, I understand that may have come of some concern to surrounding neighbors. That does not mean that construction is starting on this property. Obviously, approvals need to be in place. It was just a condition that had to be satisfied by the seller that has started as of today. I think they're just trying to get the work in before the winter. So I did want to bring that to council's attention in case there have been phone calls about that this morning. So my name is Andrea Sinclair. I'm a partner with MHBC here in support of this application for a 55 plus seniors rental development. I will focus most of my presentation on changes that have occurred as a result of the input we received at the August 23rd meeting, including some changes to the zoning bylaw amendment. The location at 773 Princess Street. Just wanted to reconfirm that the existing zoning of this site is R2, which permits a range of housing types, including townhouses, street fronting townhouses, fourplexes, etc., at a height of 10.5 meters, which is about 2.5 stories. So under the current zoning, a fourplex could be built on this property, and the side yard setback requirement would only be 1.4 meters. This is the site plan that was presented and submitted with the zone change application and was presented at the August 23rd meeting. A number of the comments received at the August 23rd meeting were actually in relation to a previous version of the site plan, which had the driveway shifted further to one side to allow for an additional house to be built and the building to be closer to the side yard, the easternmost side yard property line. The plan that was presented in August had already been modified, but since the August meeting, further changes have occurred, largely in response to the public comments. This is the current site plan, and we've also overlaid the landscaping plan for council's benefit. The landscape plan is a requirement of the site plan process and has been updated really to address the comments regarding privacy and things like that. What I wanted to note is that the building has been shifted further away from the shared property line. That's both from the eastern property line, if you can see where my mouse is pointing, as well as the shared property line with the single detached house on Princess Street. The building is now set back 9 meters from this property line, whereas the bylaw would have only required a 4.7 meter setback, and it's set back 8.2 meters from this property line, as opposed to the 4.7 that's required in the R3 zone. And once again, in the existing zone, the requirement of a side yard setback is only 1.2 meters. Landscaping has been revised with both a mix of deciduous and coniferous trees, with the coniferous trees that offer that year-round privacy have been strategically placed where they'll be across from balconies on the proposed building. The driveway entrance remains the same as where it was previously. There is no further discussion or ability to have a consent here. It will just be the driveway with landscaping on either side. There was concerns about turning movements in and out of the site. What you see here with the gray triangles at the entrances, those are the daylight triangles. So there will be no plantings or trees within the daylight triangles. That allows for clear visibility in both directions. There was concerns raised about the driveway width, and it is an appropriate width to accommodate full movements of emergency vehicles and cars. There was a number of other matters raised that were more site plan matters, but we did want to make sure we came back to council with some comment on those. So there has been a consideration for snow storage area on site. Garbage will be sort of the deep well mullock type system, which is in this location here. And then there was a request about whether or not we could look into lowering the grades on the site. And we have looked into that and can confirm that the site can be lowered 600 millimeters, which is approximately 2 feet, which will help address sort of the height of the proposed building. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the bylaw attached to the agenda illustrates that there are increased setbacks, not just what's proposed, but increasing it in the zoning bylaw itself. So in the bylaw, the requirement will now be 7.4 meters as a minimum, but the current site plans do plan to exceed that minimum. There is, as I mentioned before, increased landscaping that has occurred on the to the plan, mostly to address the views from the balconies, so that there is that privacy between this development and surrounding residential. As I previously mentioned, we are able to lower the existing grade on the site. The building height will remain at 2 stories. I did want to mention that in the R3 zoning, apartments are typically allowed to be built at a height of 12 meters, which would be approximately a 4-story building. We have discussed with planning staff and have agreed that it would be appropriate to include a 10.5 meter cap on height. That's consistent with the height that's already permitted on this property. So notwithstanding what the bylaw would normally permit, only a 10.5 meter height will be permitted. The actual design of the building is underneath that 10.5 meters currently. And the other thing that, we've added to the bylaw is there was concerns that when it gets to the site plan stage, because the official plan would actually allow a greater density than what we're proposing, that we could come in at site plan and increase the height, increase the number of units. So in addition to capping the height, we've added a provision to the bylaw and have agreed to a provision in the bylaw that would cap the units to the 32 that are proposed. Wanted to make a few comments just on the the Wellington North's community growth plan. As council's aware, this growth plan was approved in 2018, and a significant part of it looked at housing and moving forward. 65% of all township growth is to occur in Mount Forest. The report made recommendations to intensify with a huge push towards rental housing. As I stated at the beginning of this presentation, this is a purpose-built rental development. It's aged, it's going to be geared towards seniors, and there, within your own documents, there is a push for rental housing and a recognition that there needs to be more intensive forms of housing. That report also recommended that staff go back and look at other developments which have already been accepted and look at ways to further increase the height and density. In this particular instance, we didn't believe that the maximum height and density should be happening here. We agreed that 12-meter height for this particular property is probably too high considering the surrounding development. We also thought the existing official plan densities were also high for the site. So we have modified height and density to what we think is appropriate in this context, while making sure that we are still efficiently using a vacant site, efficiently using existing services, and helping the township achieve their growth targets, which were mentioned in the 2018 report as currently falling short of being able to meet the amount of growth that Mount Forest is supposed to receive. This, by providing this amount of units, we can keep the price point attainable. That is a very important objective of ArchCon, is to make sure that this is attainable housing for seniors. Any decrease in units has the effect of increasing the price point. And they really want this to be a development that is attainable for a wide range of residents, mostly with a focus on seniors. I just want to make sure I covered off everything. So once again, the site plan has been revised to address a number of the concerns that were raised at the August 23rd meeting. We are still requesting that consideration be given for a 2-story building. It is still a low-rise form of development. The height's already permitted today, and in our minds, it has been appropriately addressed through increased setbacks by decreasing the elevation of the property through extensive landscaping. The landscape plan shows approximately 40 new trees on the site, and that all matters of site plan, while we've shown them on this preliminary plan, that still has to go through an extensive review process by the township, where they will review matters such as lighting, landscaping, the parking lot design, drainage, all of those factors. The site-specific zoning regulations go above and beyond what would typically be required. And once again, we're looking at increased setbacks beyond what would normally be permitted, and then a much increased setbacks over what the existing zoning would allow for. So I'm here to answer any questions and hope that council is satisfied that the comments have been addressed. And if there's anything from the public meeting that you'd like me to speak to, I'd be happy to do that. So I'll stop sharing the presentation and look forward to any questions.
Okay, any questions from council for clarification from Andrea's presentation? Okay, I'm not seeing any, Andrea, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We may have questions before we're done.
Absolutely.
Okay, next on our list is Terry Martin from 781 Princess Street. Terry, are you with us?
Yeah, he's they're on phone only, and so I've asked them to unmute, and I think they have. There they are.
Okay.
Yes,
Welcome.
good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. I'm Terry Martin, and I live at 781 Princess Street. I'm here to represent my concerns regarding the proposal for a 32-unit, two-story apartment building for 773 Princess Street. We've not had an opportunity to speak to our neighbors about the changes in this latest proposal because the agenda was posted on a Friday of a long weekend, and a council meeting to deal with this was scheduled on the following Tuesday. Furthermore, we have been limited to 3 speakers. It would have been better to allow any person to speak that is impacted by this project. We were instructed not to speak about the concerns that were listed at the August 23rd meeting and only address revisions to the plan. Therefore, we will speak to the report from Andrea Sinclair of MHBC regarding the zoning amendments and area of concern of the community. We still feel that the cluster townhome proposal would be the best plan to maintain the stability and character of the existing neighborhood. We realize it would also need a zoning amendment to R3. These 15 townhomes would be of similar size and style as the existing neighborhood buildings. It would not negatively impact close neighbors. These townhomes with attached garages have proven to be very popular rental homes with long wait lists. These are barrier-free and appeal to a growing market of retiring people. We're disappointed that Ken Matthews has not returned our emails or responded to a package of information regarding this type of development that we proposed. We would also have appreciated Ken Matthews' presence at this meeting so we could ask him questions directly on his proposal. We met with Ken in the early spring at the site to discuss our concerns, and he said he would keep us informed as the process developed. However, we've not heard from him. It appears the county planning staff is supporting a zoning amendment to R3 to accommodate the 2-story 32-unit apartment building. Their proposed amendment includes site-specific regulations regarding building height to a maximum of 10.5 meters, side setbacks of 7.6 meters to the attached balconies, and a density of 32 units. We appreciate these site-specific regulations to be included in the zoning amendment, but if this project is to go ahead, we need some assurances of an adherence to their other promises to our concerns once the zoning change is made. In particular, centering the entrance laneway from Princess Street and eliminating the proposed severance. Lowering the grade by 2 feet, 600 millimeters. From what point in that lot is that lowering grade to be? As it stands, the property starts at grade level to the road and gradually increases until the back third or so of the property is about 2 feet higher. So in order to get level ground, they would have to lower the grade by 2 feet. Regarding privacy and overlook, we would like fencing done early in the project, and we would like a fence of 10 feet surrounding the property that would give us some privacy and some protection from light pollution. Landscaped as proposed. Coniferous trees of significant size strategically planted to provide privacy between balconies and surrounding lots. In summary, we feel that this proposal from ArchCon is not the best use of this property. You know all our concerns from the August 23rd meeting. We had asked council to deny the R3 amendment and ask ArchCon to come back with a plan more suitable for the property. However, if this zoning amendment proceeds, we would ask council to include the site-specific regulations and to get assurances from ArchCon to adhere to their promises on the revised site plan. I just have a few questions. We understand that there will have to be a site plan approval when a building permit is applied for. Will this site plan be available for the public to view? Is there any recourse if there are changes to what has been presented today? What is attainable rent? And a question for Darren, is the side setback of 7.6 meters the distance from the property line to the balconies? For example, are the balconies part of the building envelope? And I think that's an important question because in some of the responses from the planners, the side setback has been said to be 9 feet. Well, 9 meters. But in fact, it's 9 meters to the building, but it is 7.6 meters to the balcony. So I need clarification on that. So if those questions could be answered, that would be great.
Okay. Who should I get to address those? Andrea, do you feel capable to address some of those?
I can certainly try, and I'm sure Jessica can fill in if there's any gaps. So a lot to unpack there. I know our clients have reviewed the information provided by Terry, and to be honest, the position has not changed. Our client is not interested in pursuing a townhouse concept. They are the property owners. They're entitled to proceed as they see fit. We think that the development that's before council is a phenomenal use of what is sitting as a vacant property. There is a demand for rental housing as well as a range of rental housing. And there are a number of single-story rental townhouses in the community. But there's other forms of development that appeals to a broader range. So while we appreciate that they have a different vision for the site, it's not the vision of my client who is the landowner. So they have read the correspondence, but what we think we've done is made some really positive accommodations for the public concerns. In terms of fencing, solid privacy fence will be provided. I'm not sure that 10 feet is appropriate. That would be something decided through site plan, but to me, it sends a message. A 10-foot fence is something you would put up if you have an industrial factory or something like that. To me, for those new residents coming in, it sends a really unwelcoming message, I'll be honest. And I'm not sure that everyone would want a 10-foot fence in their backyard. But that is something that fencing wouldn't come through the zoning. It would be something to be dealt with at site plan. In terms of the setback, it's been added to the zoning bylaw only as a minimum. It doesn't mean that it can't be further beyond that. So the 7.6 meter minimum setback is to the building. The bylaw does allow balconies to encroach 1 meter closer to the property line than that, but the current site plan is well beyond the 7.6 meters. We have 7.6 meters to the edge of balcony, but the building itself, as I noted, is actually 9 meters back. So those have been added to the bylaw as minimums, but it doesn't mean that they can't still exceed those setbacks through the site plan process. And the site plan that we resubmitted is the site plan that we are proceeding with through the site plan process. And I'll maybe leave it to Jessica to comment on sort of the site plan process and public involvement.
Okay. Jessica, are you able to help us?
Yeah, so thanks, Andrea, for that. So we've added the 7.6 meters as the minimum setback. And as Andrea indicated, it is the minimum. They can go further. We decided to go with the 7.6 because it remained consistent with the rear yard setbacks of an R2 and an R3 zone. It is to the building, and then the balconies can project out further than that. And again, the site plan that's provided to us is showing that the balcony is 7.6 meters setback. So we think that moving forward, the 7.6 is enough. But again, it seems like what Andrea is talking about is they are going to submit the site plan. Staff will review that through the site plan approval process to make sure that they do maintain everything that's required. And then in terms of the fencing, so again, through site plan approval process, there is a buffer area required for an R3 zone that is adjacent to any other residential zones. It is not 10 feet high required in the bylaw, but if council wants to look at that today, then they can. But as of right now, a fence would be required as part of a buffer area there.
Thank you. Is there anything we missed, Terry?
Well, what is attainable rent?
I think attainable. Did you want to address that, Andrea?
I can't, you're probably going to say the same thing as me. It's just, the rents are not expected to really be considered quote unquote affordable. There's set provincial requirements for affordable and what constitutes that. But what we're trying to do is build something that is going to be not at a luxury, super expensive price point that no one can afford. Different things like the fact that it's surface parking versus underground all help to bring the cost point down. Until we have final construction costs, the exact rents we're unable to say what those will be at this point. It's too early. But the intent is that they are price points that a range of seniors and a large number of seniors can afford. So typically just a little higher than what affordable would be considered. So hopefully that helps, but I can't confirm exact rental costs at this point.
Okay. Okay. Any questions of clarification from council on this at this point?
Have none.
Okay. Thank you. And if you didn't have anything further, Terry, I'll move on.
It was, I don't think the question was answered that if the site plan for the building permit is approved and that we would be able to see that plan, is there any recourse if there are changes to what has been presented today?
So a couple of things with regard to that I might add. Any site plan, of course, is a public document and can be viewed by members of the public. If councils, we normally delegate the site plan authority approval to senior staff. However, if council wishes for this to come back for council approval, we can certainly do that. Mike, I think I saw your hand starting to go up. Do you help me if anything further?
Through you, Mayor Lennox, I believe you've addressed it. Yeah, typically site plan is a delegated authority, but in many instances, staff will bring it to council, so it becomes part of the public agenda, Ms. Martin. So it will be a similar process as it relates to the zoning bylaw, except there isn't a public meeting, but it will be coming back as part of an agenda for council to approve. And as the applicant has indicated, we anticipate that the site plan will be consistent with what was presented today. And if it's not, they can anticipate that unless it's further accommodating some of the items that have been identified by council and the public, that it won't be going forward to council. We're not looking to make alterations to a site plan that aren't consistent with the conversation that's happened thus far and what has been submitted by the applicant thus far.
So thank you for that.
And certainly that would be my expectation as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to add to that,
Okay,
after the site plan, the site plans all get registered on title as well. So they're a permanent record.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further? Okay. Thank you.
No,
Oh, sorry.
no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Terry.
Okay.
We'll now move to Penny Rankin. Penny, are you with us this afternoon?
Not yet, just let me get her in the meeting.
Okay.
Penny, you're on mute.
That better?
There you go.
I hear you now. Welcome,
Okay.
Penny.
Thank you. Thank you again, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak again. I'm hoping I'm not going to go over some issues that were spoken of before. If I do, I'm hoping to come at it with a little different angle. Before I begin, Andrea, may I ask you, what is the square meters of the building area?
Andrea, are you with us still?
Sorry, I'm still here. Just bear with me 1 second. I have the site plan open. I just don't know that number off the top of my head. The
Just a
building,
ballpark figure would be good.
yeah, sorry.
I was talking to Tammy Pringle this morning. The drawing or plan that was attached to the application or revisions wasn't very clear. And even though I put it up to 400%, I still couldn't do the reading of wording and dimensions.
Yeah, the footprint of the area, the building footprint is 1,452 square meters. And I'm just trying to find a total building area on here.
No, I think that's fine. Thank you. And what would the length of the driveway be in meters?
Let me see if the full driveway width is on here, length is on here. It might not be labeled on this plan. So that I might not be able to confirm off the top of my head. If it does, I know my team is listening. So if our engineers hear this comment, they can probably do a quick measurement and message that to me, and I can probably get an answer before we conclude today. But there's not a full length measurement on the driveway.
Okay, thank you. When looking at this land, vacant land, and knowing that a commercial building was once there, it seems unlikely that a single-story, one-family home would have been built there. And the property originally had two accesses onto both Waterloo and Princess Street. And the planning department did not seem to look forward enough when thinking of the two severances that they allowed on Waterloo Street, which have subsequently blocked any access route when two houses were built. And so if any thought had been given to the future of the property, it would have been obvious that the Waterloo Street access would have been the better choice. That access would not have had as much impact on the traffic that will now be incurred, as Waterloo Street is not the main thoroughfare between the hospital and the playgrounds, and there is already a sidewalk for pedestrians. Now I'm quoting from the application that you would have had to fill out for council. It says, in an application for a zoning bylaw amendment, supporting info may be required by the municipality, the county, local and provincial agencies in order to evaluate a proposed amendment. And it's often a requirement of the county official plan, provincial policies, and or applicable regulations, unquote. So the proposed traffic problem on Princess Street has been mentioned innumerable times by the residents. So I'm wondering why no traffic study has been requested by either the county or the municipality. And Princess Street is deteriorating at both Dublin Street and Cork Street with current usage and has not yet been repaired. So what will the street look like in the future when you have another 32 units of traffic coming in and out? And the revision mentions that the building height will be lowered 600 millimeters. And that is, sounds impressive, but it's actually 1.97 feet. And that doesn't sound quite as impressive. And so we're still thinking that the height would be greater than what would suit this neighborhood. And this is a response from MHBC to the areas of concern. And it says, the 2 stories, in their opinion, is compatible with other low-rise residential forms found within the community. So where in our residential neighborhood are they finding buildings with 2 stories? They stand on Princess Street or in the lot, they will not find one. Have they actually looked around? Even the new buildings on Cork Street are going to be 1 story. Again, their response to the lowering of the building height does not accomplish a lot with our concern for the height compared with the surrounding residences. And the coniferous trees that are going to be planted, I think that's a great idea. I appreciate that. What size will the trees be when they're planted? And how many years will we have to wait until they can effectively provide privacy? And I'd like to address your original application where you mentioned an apartment complex north of Waterloo Street. At the time in August 3rd, the only one I had thought of was the one that's on the south side of Queen Street, which is 1 story. However, after thinking, I believe you may have been referring to the multiple level condos on the north side of Queen Street. They have no bearing on our situation as they are adjacent to residences on one side only and are adjacent to the previous Canadian Tire, which would be commercial. Also, you can access those condos from Queen Street as well as from Dublin Street. And they definitely have a designated fire route on the property showing that you can get from one road to the other. And you've answered the question of 1,450 square meters for the building. And according to the building code, section 3.2.5.4, access routes shall be provided for fire department vehicles where building areas are more than 600 square meters. So I'm just sort of wondering where on that parking lot you're going to be able to have return access for these emergency vehicles. And yes, the driveway will accommodate the access for emergency vehicles going in. However, what about the return access? The increase to the side portions has increased by a little, which we appreciate, but where are those feet being taken from? What else is being reduced to accommodate that? From the parking lot? If so, then with the reduced width of the parking lot, the return access will be even more difficult. There can be no designated fire route, such as with the condos on the north side of Queen Street, because the access to Waterloo Street has now been blocked. And according to the building code, section 3.4.5.6, there should be a turnaround facility for any dead end portion of the access route with more than 90 meters long. And we're not quite sure how long that's going to be yet until Andrea finds out. But I'm thinking that there should be a better return access for any emergency vehicles. And I was also wondering with the parking is accommodating 48 parking spots. You want 32 units. That is a maximum possibility of 64 cars. If you have more than 48 cars, where are they going to be parked? And has the planning committee actually sat down to view what our town is beginning to look like? With buildings, some not appropriate, put into small places, just so that they can say, yes, we've put in more units as per the county plan. Has thought been given to the look of our town and how others who may wish to live here view it? Do not the concerns of those who now live here and pay taxes for the upkeep of our town matter? And is council really sort of caring about our opinions? For the sake of 16 units, our neighborhood has been subjected to stress and worry about a building that obviously doesn't fit in with the surrounding residences. Yet again, another letter from a nearby resident has voiced their opinion that this proposed building does not suit. I think nonsensical was the word that was used in that letter. Not one letter has been submitted welcoming a 32-unit building to our neighborhood. In this case, Archcon Group has not addressed the issue of compatibility of the building with the adjacent properties. We know that they have yet again, since August 23rd, been shown plans that would be in total compliance with this neighborhood and are again requesting that we be given the consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Penny. Any questions from council for clarification?
I have none.
Okay,
Neither.
thank you. So we'll move on to, and I apologize, I hope I'm getting the pronunciation right this time. Gianni Chitola, did I get it right? Is he with us?
I'm gonna get him here. Just give me a second. Should be seeing him shortly. Okay.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Ken,
Right.
welcome.
It's Johnny Achitola. It's a tough one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak again about this. It's a really important topic to our community. So I appreciate this opportunity and your attention. I live, just for the record again, at 307 Jeremy's Crescent. It's the second house in off of Princess Street. The building itself would start in basically the about a quarter of my backyard would be affected by the building, and maybe a third, depending on the setbacks that they're doing now. So I'm here to basically ask council again to vote against this request. And it's not for the purpose of the R3 zoning itself. It's the type of development that's being proposed. Community members have voiced several concerns that an apartment building of this nature would have on the existing neighborhood. The developer has addressed a few of them. The setbacks component, the grading and the landscaping, which we are appreciative of. But their efforts for these few concessions or these few items really alone do not go far enough in supporting the development of this 32-unit, two-story building to proceed. The developer has communicated other things than they've reiterated in their presentation today. I'm only going with what I've got in the package since Friday, and then also just trying to improvise a little bit about the extra explanation that I've received today, or all of us have received today. They suggest that the R2 zoning height limits are 10.5 meters and that they can go ahead right now and build at 10.5 meters. We understand that, and they're proposing that, the 10.5 meter be, the restriction or limit set in language moving forward to any agreement. I appreciate that, and they can go ahead, but it's really, I think part of it has got to do with the proposed, like right now, if they were to build a 10.5 building, they're limited as to what they can build with the R2 rating, because they can only do, semis or singles or up to fourplex or up to 3-4 unit type townhouses. And that is being consistent with everything that we currently have in the community. I got to probably correct, and with Penny mentioned that there are no 2 stories. There probably is the odd 2-story house. You can count them, they're not around, but they definitely don't play havoc on their neighboring lots and don't pose a privacy concern and other issues that we will most likely experience with this, including the safety concerns to the community. Basically, I want to also move on and just to review under the Schedule 1 responses from the developer. I'm just going to hit on a couple of highlight items and not the whole thing, but they under the height and density, they've obviously discussed the height concerns, and we appreciate the cap at 10.5 and so forth, but they haven't addressed our concerns about the density, and that's one of the major concerns is the density, is having that amount of people associated with the lot and spilling out into a street that is really, again, a side suburb street that is not designed for that. Also under their responses was the residential use. So the developer states that if they were to consider a change to have a townhouse type development on that lot, that they would have to have an R3 zoning change. And we understand this. We understand. We at the community at large are not really against the R3 zoning change. I think it's about, again, it's about the proposed development that they're proposing. The 2-story 32 unit is really what we're concerned about, not that they're not using the lot to its full potential in another way that is compatible to what's existing and would be, we believe is a better use of the land versus trying to place a huge high density or a larger high density building on the lot. The privacy in the overlook, so they did add plantings and coniferous trees strategically. I do suggest that my property, being that I don't get a head-on balcony, but it's more of the side balcony on the Princess Street side. It doesn't address the side view for that specific front-facing Princess Street apartment. So we would want some sort of corner coniferous tree plan. It's a good plan, so we appreciate that. With that being said, we would want in the plans for, hang on a second here. The plan should include permanent maintenance of such plantings, including replacement of plantings that fail, die, or diseased, etc. That should be included in it for the life of the building itself. And also it needs to be enforceable that we, if they don't meet requirements of that there's a consequence component to that. There was also mention about the fencing, and I'm going to share that our current fencing is way higher than any 6 foot because of that commercial lot that was there. So actually by changing the fence and going down, it is roughly around 10 feet now. So we would be losing out and actually taking a step backwards if they replace the fence at a 6 footish type height as what they're proposing. Andrea mentioned that the 10-foot fence comment about this wouldn't be appealing to new residents. And I appreciate that and might not be welcoming, but ultimately I think if they're putting a building to this level, the fact that we're concerned about privacy, putting up deciduous trees that, provide screening year round and a height, adequate height, we're still proposing the fencing on at least on the Princess Street, the Jeremy side street to be 10 foot or roughly what it is now height level means that realistically we're concerned more about our privacy if something comes to the, if they build a development of that type nature in our backyard. I am concerned about my privacy. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not welcoming to me as a resident here. And the comments at large within the community are that we wouldn't be welcoming of an apartment for many reasons that we've discussed. So I just wanted to comment on that. Moving forward, the response about Princess Street sidewalks as well. There was a deflection. Obviously, the developer's right. It's not their responsibility. It's a township responsibility to provide that type of infrastructure to the community, but we don't have that. We currently have a problem, and now we're proposing. There's a potential proposal for us to even compound the problem by adding a high residential, community apartment building there. So. I personally believe that anything related to an R3, it has to have an automatic plan of having sidewalks at minimum placed as part of any R3 approval moving forward. And furthermore, community traffic review, including whether stop signs are needed, crosswalks, things like to that nature, even depending on what side the sidewalk is on and so forth. So I'm challenging the council to take another look at this and specifically to make that a requirement from the council's point of view, if the R3 is to proceed for any real reason, including, you know, cluster housing, if town housing, if that's the case. I do want to also make mention of the development, the planning report from the Planning and Development Department. I had a question about the 7.6 meter allocation setback. I appreciate the explanation by the planner. I'm sorry, I forgot her name. I do want to make mention that she stated that sorry, let me so that the 7.6 allocation would be, from the planning and development perspective, adequate enough. I'm basically suggesting that if the developer is agreeing to go to 9 feet on the one side and 8.2 on the other, it should be included in the language, not what's substantial enough from a development point of view, but what the developer is actually agreeing to go on. So I'm going to ask for that. I thought it was an actual error because it didn't capture what the developer said, and ultimately that explanation explained why it's there. But it should be really allocated to 7.6 to the balcony line, or 9 to the building on the Jeremy's side, as the spirit of what the developer is basically suggesting. So I'm going to ask for that to be reviewed. And then I've heard a number of times, including in the presentation today, and also with the planning report, about the proposed site. The opinion is that the zoning bylaw amendment to permit an apartment building in the property is consistent with the provincial policy, conforms with the Community of Wellington official plan, other wording of the PPS and growth plan. This building is consistent. So I'm hearing all this, but any building of this nature anywhere would be consistent with a growth plan. It doesn't basically indicate whether this is an appropriate place for it, or if this is the best suitability for our existing neighborhood. And it's been, you know, a lot of the houses have been here for a very long time. And I do appreciate that they want to maximize the ability and efficiency of that building, is the wording that they're using. But I also need, there needs to be a view on, is this the right thing for the community? Is this going to conform with, the rest of the look of the area? Is this going to, cause, what's going to cause the least amount of permanent, negative outcome for the community? It should be positive outcome, not negative, but I'm talking this way because, I'm almost trying to save anything that I can here, in the sense of the look, the feel, the privacy of my house and my neighborhood. And then, I'm going to reiterate what Penny stated, that I think the town council didn't have, outlook into the future when making previous decisions with the lot and cutting off the east entrance, or the Waterloo, if I'm getting my my directions right, but the Waterloo side was cut off to new houses, and that was the side, if anything, should have been the main entrance for any proposed R3 type of development in that area, because it has all the infrastructure of sidewalk, wider streets, all that's, and it's not as busy as the Princess Street side. Other than that, I'm going to basically summarize by basically suggesting that we asked that the council, and when I say we, it's myself and Michelle Andrews, my partner, we both live here together, and the community, on behalf of the community. The message is that this type of building really is not what we believe is the best for the area, that we think it could be still maximized in efficiency and with other plans. I'm not suggesting what is the right plan. I think that this plan for sure is not, is concerning to us and is not welcome, at least by me. These plans for apartment buildings are better suited for Main Street type areas, like the condominiums on Queen Street, like the lot beside the fire hall that's being built as we speak. We have a lot of future areas of development under consideration now. And these type structures should be actually proposed and built within those, I personally believe, not within a chunk of land that's literally 1.6 acres. And this building is not going to solve all the target needs of Wellington North Council and the county plan, not this one lot. So I'm asking that any decision to the lot should be based on, yes, trying to embrace that spirit of trying to get some increased intensification, but not to the level where you're putting an apartment building that spans the length of 6 houses on the one side is going to take away our sunlight. And we're desperately fighting to try to, include any length of a higher level of fence and trees and everything, because we don't want to see it, and it doesn't belong here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time, and I will entertain any questions or thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Any questions of clarification from council? Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question with regards to, and Penny didn't phrase it as a question. So I'm going to put it out there because it is a concern that I think that should be addressed. And that was with regards to the return access for emergency vehicles. And she quoted the fact that there needed to be 90 meters. I'm sorry, Mayor Lennox, I'm not exactly sure who to address that question to, but I'm just wondering if somebody would like to comment on that.
Okay, Sherry, I think that's really an issue that comes up and is dealt with at site plan level.
Okay.
Not sure who to direct it to either. Mike, can you help me figure out how we direct that one?
Yeah, I believe Darren can probably address it from the building code.
Okay.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the requirement is a 90-meter long fire route. If it's longer than 90 meters to the principal entrance from the street, it requires a fire truck turnaround. This proposal, the fire route would be less than 90 meters from the principal entrance from the street. So a turnaround would not be required.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
Yeah, Andrea has her hand up.
Okay, thank you. Andrea?
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Burke. I was actually had my hand up before yours to confirm just that fact that we're not beyond the 90 meters. But there were just a few comments that came up through those last delegations that if council is willing to hear, I'd like to address. One on sort of maintenance and on the landscaping. So typically through site plan, you have to post a letter of credit. In the normal course of things, the landscaping letter of credit gets held longer because there are a number of trees that sometimes don't survive the initial planting. So I think the typical standard is about 2 years. And so that any trees that die initially have to be replaced before you get refunded those securities. But with this being a purpose-built rental, it is the intent that this would be professionally managed and maintained. And that would include replacement of all landscaping through the life of the project. So I wanted to confirm that. In Gianni's, and I'm sorry if I've pronounced your name wrong, asked about consideration for additional coniferous plantings at that corner. I think that's certainly something we can accommodate to make sure you've got that same privacy consideration. So we'll pass that comment along to the landscape architect on the site plan, but I think that's an easy accommodation. We've heard the comment about the 10-foot fence. Again, that would be more of a site plan matter. We can look at it. You know, if that's the existing fence that's there, that will likely cause more of a shadow impact really than the building, considering the setback, but that's certainly something we can explore with staff during the site plan process. In terms of traffic, a traffic study was not requested. I don't believe this is the unit threshold meets what is typically the sort of the minimum threshold to ask for a traffic study. That being said, if council is concerned on that, we could certainly through site plan have a requirement to do a traffic study. It's, again, it's not something the township has asked for, but if council wants that to be done, I think our client would be willing to do that. And any recommendations that come out of that can then be implemented through the site plan. For example, if a stop sign at the entrance is needed. But typically a traffic study would look at larger improvements to the surrounding road network, like a new signal, if additional turning lanes need to be put in. And at 32 units, it's not anticipated that that would be the case here, which is why it wasn't requested. And then just in closing, there's been a lot of comments about compatibility and existing heights in Mount Forest. And I just wanted to stress that within your official plan and pretty much consistent in all official plans is the statement that compatible does not mean the same as, and you can be compatible without being the exact same as everything that's already developed. We are in all of Ontario really in a housing crisis. We've got 2 million more people moving to this province in the next 10 years and a lack of housing. And applications like this, there's very limited vacant properties such as this one that are of a size that can accommodate some intensification. We have reduced height from what would typically permitted in the R3, but we think it would be extremely short-sighted of council to lower the density to 1 story and only 16 units when so much growth is expected to occur within Mount Forest and there's limited opportunities for serviced vacant sites. I understand the residents, you know, it's not, their concerns of course are related to their own properties, and we understand that. Myself and the townships and county planners, we have to hold ourselves to the provincial policy statement and local official plans. And those are stating that, you know, vacant sites are a priority for intensification. Effectively using your services is a priority. And to use a property of this size and not sort of, and we're not maxing out, but to make sure that you're not putting so few units on it that the price point is going to be suddenly unaffordable. And within your within your own township document in 2018, it stressed how important rental housing is in Mount Forest. And it also stressed that this should be encouraged, and not only encouraged, developers should be given incentives to build rental housing. So I just really wanted to make sure that comes across how important this type of housing is in Mount Forest. And thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Andrea. Other questions from council for clarification? We got sidetracked there a little bit. Okay, not seeing any. So again, thanks, Johnny. So Karen?
Thank you for your time.
Not related to this one. I just wanted to let you know that an email was received today from Tim Brooks and Cindy Gilbert. They were concerned about a 2 p.m. meeting. Some people aren't able to attend. They indicated that there's disappointment and strong feelings about the building. They don't indicate what those reasons are. And they talk about the delivery of the pipes today. And I think that Andrea has already addressed that in her comments. And I see that Tim is on the call. So I hope he heard them, or they were recorded so you can check them.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. So we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, which is an appointing bylaw. So so for those of you who are joining the meeting interested in this application, we've got a couple of items to go through here, and then we'll be coming right back to this issue. I'm also going to be recommending to council that we bring the bylaw related to this matter forward when we get to that item on our agenda, so that we can deal with that at the same time. As for those of you who are interested in this issue, so you're not meant to keep waiting all afternoon. So with that said, I'll just get on with the next item. We have appointing bylaw. So I'll just read the recommendation. Recommendation that bylaw 96-21 be read first, second, and third time and enacted. And this has to do with the appointment of a new building inspector, bylaw enforcement official. So could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. And Darren, I see your picture pop up here. Would you like to welcome our newest member of the team?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we're happy to have Natalie join us. She's got fair bit of municipal experience, and yeah, so welcome to Natalie.
Welcome, Natalie.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Okay, so I guess before, we welcomed her, now we better get on with the job of making it official. So we have a mover and a seconder for that. Any discussion on that before we move forward? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And officially now, welcome aboard, Natalie.
Thanks.
Look forward to meeting you.
Yes, you too.
Okay, so the next item we have is adoption of minutes of the council and the public meeting of September 27th. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on September 27th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Dan. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have some business arising from previous meeting. We have a notice of motion put forward by Councillor McCabe. The recommendation reads as follows. The council revisit resolution 2021-247 that provides that the council of the corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive ExploreNet correspondence dated July 12, 2021 regarding proposed 45-meter self-support tower at 7239 5th Line, Center Wellington, Township of Wellington North. And further, the council directs staff to send a letter of objection to ExploreNet regarding the proposed 45-meter self-support tower at 7239 5th Line, Township of Wellington North, as it may impact the operations of the York Soaring Club. So I'm going to assume that you're the mover for that, Councillor McCabe.
I will move that.
Could I have a seconder for that, please? Lisa, thank you. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you for this, and thanks for putting this on the agenda today. My notice really is for trying to get the rest of council's support for this motion to send them a letter saying that there must be a more suitable location that's further away from the York Soaring Club and their airfield and the pilots and the gliders that are going to be in that airspace. I spoke to John Nader actually this morning, and he's actually sending a letter to Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada, urging them to reconsider the location of this as well. I think that he sees the safety concerns of all the pilots and the gliders and the airspace around there, as well as a huge concern for the people using the airfield and our residents in that area. That's basically it. I don't know, as a municipality, we really can't, we have to delegate over to the federal government for this, but I think sending a letter of objection and asking them to find a more suitable location is in the best interest of the York Soaring Club and our safety of our residents as well. And it's nice that our MP shares that line of thinking as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Any other discussion? Dan, go ahead.
Just a question to Steve. Steve, how much conversation have you had with the gliding club?
I haven't had any, to be honest with you, Dan.
Oh, okay.
I know that MP Nader has, and
Okay.
I've talked to more of the neighbors around the Soaring Club than the Soaring Club themselves. I know they have been approached by the Wellington Advertiser as well, and I've heard that they are the York Soaring Club president is not in favor of the proposed self-standing tower there, right close to the airfield, right close to their airfield. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
I would just add, Councillor Yake, that I have been contacted by the York Soaring as well, and I am sympathetic to their concern around the airspace around it, particularly with gliders, since they don't have an engine to take off if the air currents are not appropriate for landing in exactly the right place. So perhaps the tower being located a little further away might make it a lot safer for them. normally I'm probably, while we're learning about our role in this process, I'm not as concerned about neighbors disliking the tower or the appearance of it, because it's also talking about delivering what I consider to be an essential service in being rural internet. I'm quite certain that when people first had hydro poles going up and down the road, they didn't like the look of them either, but we are sure dependent on that today. And, I appreciate neighbors may not like to have a tower near them, but I think we have to be supportive of these types of towers because they are delivering an important service that we have said many times around this table, how important it is for our rural residents to have access to better internet. So this situation, I think, is a little different in that because of the presence of the aerodrome, and for that reason, I'm prepared to support this reconsideration. Steve, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, great. And through you, Mayor Lennox. Yeah, I'm fully in support of towers going up, and yeah, I understand that neighbors may not like it in their backyard, as they say, NIMBY. But I also realize the need for them and the need for our agribusinesses and everyone working from home the last 18 months to almost 2 years, and that's probably going to go on in the future. My concern is just, as you suggested, is just the proximity to the airfield, and that's all that concerns me the most.
Okay. Any other, Lisa, go ahead.
Not really a comment, just not a question, just a comment. Steve had commented that he spoke to John Nader, and I just wanted to add that John did visit the site on Friday. He was at York Soaring. He called me back from another matter, regarding another matter as he was leaving. So he did do a site visit.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Lisa, sorry, Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I too support having it moved for the York Soaring Club. I did have the opportunity to read an article on social media that they had talked to the Wellington advertisers. So it doesn't really seem to fit the location with regards to the proximity to the York Soaring Club. But if they could reconfigure it so that it's out there far enough away to accommodate those folks, that's where I'd like to see the emphasis on the letter, not the fact that we don't want that tower out there. As you alluded to, we do need those services, but more to the impact of the airspace.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further? Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
And thank you.
Okay, so we're on to items for consideration. So if council would pull out those items that we'd like to have further discussion on, we can move to there. I'm going to go out on a limb and say we're going to talk about 1A.
I was going to suggest that as well, Mayor Lennox. If I may.
Go ahead, Steve.
I wouldn't mind talking about 2D on page 109.
2D.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling down to it now.
Parks, Rec, and Leisure Committee.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
3B on page 122, and then 5A on 133.
So 3B being the farmers market.
Yes.
And sorry, what was the last one, Steve?
5A. Thank you, Andy.
5A, the wastewater treatment plant.
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to remind everyone that item 2D, which is the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee, all of those recommendations, that's where the amendment had been. So when we get to that, I'll just set out what those, I'll just remind you again what those amendments were.
Okay. Thanks, Karen.
Sorry, and thank you. That's basically the only reason I was kind of bringing that up and forward. So.
Okay. Any others that anyone would like pulled out? Sherry, go ahead.
7A.
Okay, 7A.
That's on the supplementary agenda. It's the fire.
Right, okay.
report On the appointment of the fire chief, deputy.
Okay. Thank you. Any others? Dan, go ahead.
1F, I think it's what it is. Still trying to track it down here.
Site plan agreement to Industrial Drive, Mount Forest.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, Mayor, you had said 1A, which is the planning report on 773 Princess, that you were
Yeah,
going
and
to
my
move the
intention was the
bylaw.
full bylaw.
Okay.
Which one is it? The one related to that, is it 83-21?
It is 8321, yes.
Okay, so we'll pull that one and deal with it when we deal with 1A.
Excuse me.
Okay, last call for any others for this pull out for discussion. Okay, just bear with me a second here. Okay, so we'll deal with all the other items that we haven't pulled out for discussion, and the recommendation reads as follows. That all items listed under items for consideration on the October 12th, 2021 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Dan. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back to 1A. This is the planning report prepared by Jessica, senior planner, and I'll read the recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the planning report prepared by Jessica Rahim, senior planner, County of Wellington, dated October 6, 2021, regarding 773 Princess Street, Mount Forest zoning bylaw amendments. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that recommendation, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. And with that, we'll open the floor for discussion. Anyone? No discussion on that one? Boy, you guys are making me look bad here.
No, not,
Steve?
no, I had spoken to Terry Martin before, and just want to make sure that if this goes ahead, there is a public meeting that they can have a informed look and take their time and have a look at the at this again. I know if we make a decision here today, not going to. Some people will like it and some people won't. I quite like the idea of it, but I'm all right if they need some more time to go through, even more than what was allotted today. But in order to make them happy, if this is pushed back a little bit so they are more comfortable with it in the long run, I'm very okay with that as well.
Okay. Karen.
Just from a process piece, you talk about a public meeting for them to consider it. Normally what would happen, it will appear on an agenda for their review. It's not really.
Yeah. Sorry, I probably used the wrong terms.
Okay,
Karen.
I just want to be sure. Okay.
I just would like them to have time to go through it again, and if it makes that makes it more applicable for them, then so be it.
Okay. Any other comments, Dan?
Well, we've certainly heard the opposition to the proposal. The neighbors are quite upset with what's being proposed. Although the developer has made some concessions and made some changes, which I think are good, but I still am not 100% committed to the fact that an apartment building is suitable housing in that area and in that type of subdivision or in that type of area. So yeah, I guess if I don't think anything's going to change in regards to the developer's proposal, but if council is willing to let the opponents or neighbors think about it a little bit longer, I'd certainly support that.
Okay. Other comments? Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the concept of this development is great, and it's something that we do need in our community. And it would help meet our targets. We heard all of the information about increasing density under the PPS. However, we've heard a lot from the neighborhood, and in my belief, and I'm sure that all of the neighbors over there and any other development that comes along that is similar, I don't believe that a development like this should be put in an established neighborhood. I don't think infill lots should be used for this type of development, and that infill lots should complement the area. So we can defer this, we can let the residents have another crack at it, but I'm pretty confident in saying you're not going to change very many of the residents' minds. There has been a lot of concessions made by the developer. I do agree with that, but I do not believe that this is the right area for a development of this magnitude.
Okay. Any other comments? Dan, go ahead.
Just briefly, we heard several people say that they're not opposed to the rezoning. They're not opposed to that, but they're opposed to the type of development. And I think that's what we need to listen to.
Okay. Lisa, did you have anything you wanted to add at this point?
I'm not sure. I mean, I understand all of their concerns, and I'm happy to defer it, to listen to some more and allow them to review things. But it does address so much need, and you know, some of these issues. I mean, we don't have anything within our zoning bylaws that restrict a lot of these. I don't know. I think it sends mixed messages to the builder. It's, you know, when they're doing something that conforms to both our strategic plan and our community growth plan, and try to tick off a lot of boxes. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say.
Okay. Steve, I saw you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I'm sure the residents are happy that the commercial building's not there anymore, and that the heavy truck traffic that was in and associated with that business for many years is not there anymore. And like Lisa just said, it ticks all of the boxes, and especially with the PPS from the province and our need to address rental units, especially for this age group. And I know there's opposition to the development of what's being proposed, but I'm not sure what else could kind of go there and tick off all the boxes that we need in our community. I don't I'd be interested to hear what, I know they said a 1-story would be okay. And they're not opposed to the rezoning to R3, but I'm just wondering the type of development, what else could possibly go there and fill all the needs that this proposed development is. I don't know any other options, I guess maybe would be the right way. I'm open to hear some though.
Okay. Thanks. Any other comments? I would like to make a few, but give everybody else a chance first. Okay, seeing none, I'll make a few of my own comments. And first, I'd like to address the neighbors. Certainly hear your concerns with what, this development around the changes it'll bring to the neighborhood. And I completely understand your perspective. If I were in your shoes, I'd probably be doing exactly as you're doing as well. Unfortunately, I'm not in your position. I'm in a different position that forces me to look at other issues across the entire community that affect everyone in our community and all of us in a collective way. And for me, the big issue here is affordability of housing. And we talked about affordability when we did our strategic plan 3 years ago. We talked about it when we did a community growth plan. Well, we started it more than 3 years ago, but 3 or 4 years ago, and we put together policies that really spoke to this type of application. Increased intensification in infill where there's existing services. And at that point, we were doing that, making those recommendations, and even in putting incentives into our development charges bylaw to spur this type of development, because we saw this as a way to try to get more affordable housing for our residents and people who may choose to move to our community. We've heard stories, lots of them, from people around us of seniors who can't find appropriate housing. We've heard lots of stories from our major employers about how they can't find workforce because there's no place for their people to live. And that problem is not getting less. That problem is getting worse. I just came across a statistic last week that in Wellington County, the cost of housing in the last 5 years has gone up 250%. Unfortunately, most people are not going to be able to afford a single family detached home or even a semi or possibly even a townhouse. We need places for both our young people to start out and seniors to downsize into that are more affordable than most of the housing that's available in our community. And I don't know how we get there. I mean, we put these policies in place because we believe, we discussed, we debated, and came to a consensus that these policies suited trying to get a different type of housing, being townhomes, semis, and apartments as well. And if I could come up with a way to not have to say to the neighbors that you need to accept change that you may not want in your neighborhood, I'd love to do that. So if anyone's got suggestions of how we get this type of growth happening in our community or a better way to accommodate more affordable housing, I am very open to that, because I don't want to impose this on the neighborhood that doesn't want it. But I'm stuck with the problem of how do we address this affordable housing situation. It's important to not only to our economy, but it's important to the cultural makeup of our community too. If all of our young people have to move away, or our seniors that are aging out of their larger homes have to move somewhere else to find accommodation, who's going to be the volunteers in our local organizations? Who's going to continue to keep all those cultural things that are so important to our community alive? Who's going to work? We've seen it already. Who's going to work in our service industries? We've seen more than one service business in recent days have to reduce their hours of operation because they can't find people to keep their businesses open. This is a serious, serious problem in our community and is only getting worse. It's it's not only in our community, this is national. I mean, we heard this as one of the major issues facing the nation in the last federal election. And if there is a way to not have to ask neighbors to accept this kind of change, then I want to know about it. Please tell me, because I don't know where it is today. And we have put these policies in place in good faith, recognizing that these types of situations are going to happen. And to walk away from an investor who's checking all the boxes, as someone else has said, because the neighbors don't like the change in their neighborhood. And I understand that completely. But at some point, we have to make a decision that's how are we going to get this type of housing built in our community? And if not here, then please tell me where, because we're running out of spaces to put it, and the need is ever larger than it ever was before. So I think that sums up what I have to say. Any other discussion? Okay, I believe we have a mover and a seconder on this motion, so I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And we'll move right to bylaw number 83-21. This is the zoning bylaw amendment for this property we've been discussing. And the recommendation is that bylaw number 83-21 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. And I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Sherry. Seconded by Steve. Discussion, Sherry, did you? Yep.
Yes. Although I know it may seem redundant because we are on Zoom, I'd ask for a recorded vote so that it can be documented. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Okay, Karen, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I'll go around the table. Councillor McCabe, yay or nay?
Excuse me, yay.
Councillor Yake, yay or nay?
Nay.
Nay?
Yeah.
Councillor Hearn, yay or nay?
Yay.
Councillor Burke
Nay.
and Mayor Lennox.
Yay.
So the yeas have it, 3-2, the vote carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next item. This is 1F, I believe. Is that the next one in order, Karen?
That is correct, the site plan agreement.
Okay. So we have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report DC 2021-025 regarding the final approval of 283-1468 Ontario Limited Site Plan Agreement. Excuse me, could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa. Open the floor for discussion. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess not sure who to ask the question to. Maybe you, Mayor Lennox. Is this the property that we had discussion on recently?
So yes, Councillor Yake and I were called by the owners of the property to come and the owners raised some concerns around process with us.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
That's all I really wanted to know. If this was the property, I was pretty sure that it was. And that, so now we are moving ahead with, some of the site plan agreement. So that's, is this a good news story? I guess it's that maybe it's my question or my comment. I mean, there was concerns on this, about this development. now we're moving ahead. Have we alleviated some of the concerns, I guess, that were there before? Or are we still working towards that?
So I'm going to look to you, Mike, I think a little bit just in terms of process, but I believe if I understand our process properly, staff have the approval authority to sign off on site plan agreements. I think this is an item that's brought for our information and for us to have any further discussion if required. Have I missed anything, Mike?
No, through you, Mayor Lennox. Yeah, site plan authority has been delegated to the role of CIO. And typically during process, I make an assumption based or a decision based on information about whether or not to proceed with signing the site plan in advance of it coming to council. From a timeline perspective, developers much appreciate that. Some do or do not want to wait for the formal process, which is typically a couple of weeks before it's on an agenda for council to approve. In this instance, both myself and the owners have signed off on the site plan, Councillor Yake. So I guess that's a good news story.
Okay,
I don't.
no.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. They may not like the contents of the site plan, but they signed it. And we've been working with them, the owners, on site plan approval for some time, and site plan approval is a requirement prior to them getting building permit. So in terms of process, it certainly is good news, I guess.
Okay. If I
Go ahead, Dan.
Just the mayor and I had met with the developers a week or so ago. They asked us to meet them on site, and there was some concerns, like mayor has said. And I just wanted to make sure this looks to me as if, we're kind of making some good progress. So we're starting to move forward. So that to me is good, positive.
Okay. I don't want to be the rain on your parade, Dan, but I think the question, maybe more importantly, has the developer received their building permit at this stage? Darren?
Yep, they weren't quite ready with a full submission, but we got them going with a conditional permit for foundation only until they get the rest of the drawings in. But yeah, they're ready to begin construction.
Okay, so that does sound positive. I know that the developers were not totally happy, but it sounds like we're moving forward. Dan, go ahead.
Just one more comment. This is one of the classic examples of where there's always two sides to every story. So, and I think the mayor and staff and the building department have handled it appropriately and very well done. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Dan. I know that Mike and I did have some discussion about maybe updating our complaint handling policy around where we might want to involve staff in meetings like that so that we have more readily all the information at our fingertips at the time of the meeting with the person raising the concern. So we may work towards modifying that a little bit. So if you do get calls like this, I know that I've been in a few situations this past few months where I'm pretty open to meeting with people and talking about their concerns, where I've been caught flat-footed, where I didn't know the answers to things. And I think in some cases it might, especially when you get into the more technical stuff, it might be better to involve some of the technical experts in the discussion so that we can speed up the process.
Sure. No, very good.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're on to 2D, I believe. This is Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee. And I know there's some changes here on there's a whole bunch of recommendations here. I guess we're going through them all individually. Thanks, Steve.
That was not my intent. It was more just to bring up the fact that there was I guess amendment to the rec file. I think I trust council has read through all the recommendations. I surely don't need you to reread everything.
Well, I think from a process perspective, Karen, we're going to need a mover and a seconder at the very least for all of these, right?
Yes.
Well, I can move it, Mayor.
Can we get the same mover and seconder for them all to facilitate it?
Sure.
So move by Steve. Are you prepared to be the seconder, Sherry?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll deal with these one at a time. Thank you, Steve and Sherry, for being willing to help facilitate the process. So the first recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the minutes of the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee meeting held on October 5th, 2021. Again, that's moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. Any discussion on that one? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next one is a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North direct the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee Chair to request to appear as a deputation at a future council meeting of the Township of Southgate, to request that Southgate Council consider a financial contribution to the new Mount Forest outdoor pool and aquatics facility, as well as promote awareness of the public engagement process that will be a part of the conceptual design for the project as recommended by the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee. Again, that's moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. Any discussion on that one? Sherry, go ahead.
Yes. So I think it's a great recommendation. This is something that we had talked about at the Aquatics Committee as well. So I would like to be a part of that presentation when we get there. Being the chair of the Aquatics Committee, I know we had talked about that and had asked staff to gather some information for us. So I'm not opposed to the recommendation. I just like to be a part of it.
Okay. Steve?
Through you, Andy, to, I guess, Karen, can we amend that recommendation that's on the floor to include Sherry? Because I think that's a great idea. And more than happy to share the floor with her in front of Southgate.
Do we need to amend that, Karen?
That's what I'm asking. Do we need to?
We can just trust you to extend that invitation, Steve.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
We can just put in the minutes that the chair was directed to ensure that Councillor Burke, as chair of the Aquatics Committee, be invited to attend the deputation.
Perfect.
Okay. Mike, I saw your hand up there.
I just, through you, Mayor Lennox, while this is on, the recommendation was specific to Southgate. I just wanted the rest of council to hear part of the conversation that took place at the committee meeting was that a similar request should maybe be considered for West Gray as well. So just want to make sure, I just want to make sure that that doesn't get lost as it relates to the conversation, because I think if it does, Southgate will probably not be excited to hear that, yeah, we're not looking at West Gray as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Mike, and I would add too that I'm happy to support the chair of the committee and the chair of the ad hoc aquatics committee in this in any regard, any way that I can, whether that's attending the meeting or helping to set this up. I'm happy to perform whatever role is appropriate.
So do you want this amended to include West Gray, or do you think that there'll be another recommendation come from the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee?
Steve, go ahead.
Not to go before you, Andy, but yeah, I would seek that amendment to include West Gray, just so we can kind of move this forward and don't have to wait till the next rec meeting.
So if Councillor McCabe and Councillor Burke are amenable to a friendly amendment, we will just amend the resolution, the recommendation to read council meeting to a future council meeting of Township of Southgate and Township of West Gray.
I'm very okay with that.
I'm seeing Sherry nodding, so I think we're good to
Yes.
go. Any other discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next recommendation, again moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke, that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North appoint Shelly Weber as a public member on the Mount Forest Aquatics Ad Hoc Advisory Committee as recommended by the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee. Any discussion on that one? Okay, well, I'm glad that Shelly has stepped forward, and I hope the committee, I'm sure the committee will welcome her as many hands make light work. So congratulations, Shelly, on joining the committee. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next recommendation, again moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North approve a budget of $200,000 for concrete and equipment for the Arthur BMX Skateboard Park with possible additions as funds become available. And further, that the Arthur Lions Club be authorized to proceed with the installation of any required cement pad to meet the specifications of the successful BMX Skateboard Park proponent, and that the request for proposal tender reflect the cement pad specification requirements be provided with the bidder, with installation to be completed by others. Just a second here. Yeah, that's the end of that one, right? Discussion on that? Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next recommendation, again moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North appoint Jack Baker as the youth member for the Arthur BMX Skateboard Park Ad Hoc Advisory Committee as recommended by the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee. Any discussion on that one? And just like Shelly on the Aquatics, welcome Jack to the Skateboard Park Committee. I think youth and perspective of a user will be very valuable in this process going forward. All those in favor? That's carried. Next recommendation, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North award Township request for proposal 2021-008 for the concept design of a pool and aquatics facility to architect Tillman Ruth Robinson, Inc. at an upset limit of $14,900 plus applicable taxes. And further, the council approve a contingency budget of $5,000 plus applicable taxes for this project. And further, the council authorized the director of operations or their designate to sign any necessary agreements with the successful bidders to execute this project as recommended by the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee. Again, that's moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. Any discussion on that? Okay. I would just add that it's nice to see this project moving to the next step. And looking forward to what the conceptual design may look like. I know there's lots of interest among community members, and certainly I think there's interest among this panel to see how this is going to look going forward. So, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so here's where we get into the modifications. We're just dealing with recommendation 1, right, Karen?
And it's, yes, it's not even recommendation 1 now. It's just going to be a standalone recommendation, and where it says recommendation 2 there, that is deleted because in the minutes of the Parks and Rec, it was actually deferred.
Right. Okay. Okay, our last recommendation of this batch, moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North direct staff to sign the Arthur Outdoor Gym closed from November 1st to April 30th each year as recommended by the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee. Open the floor for discussion on that one. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? These went faster, Councillor McCabe, than that committee somehow.
Yeah, for sure.
I was
Okay.
going to suggest that Dan needed to know the closing dates for sure. And I'll see him down there with me. I need it.
I want to be down there on Halloween.
So I think that brings us to 3B. This is in regard to the farmers market. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information report EDO 2021-27, being report on the Wellington North Farmers Market. And could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Steve, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to put a bit more light on Pastor Harry and Kendra for doing another smash job this year at the farmers market. She did a great job on Instagram and Twitter, and I was only able to make it up there the once, but it was fairly lively and busy, and it just goes to prove the work that Pastor Harry has put in it, doubling the size of the attendees, and then getting 12 full-time vendors in. It all just dovetailed really well with getting on social media and moving it over to where the Victory Church parking lot is, and can't wait for next year. And just kudos to him. It's great for our community, and it's good for our residents as well.
Yes, thanks, Steve. Anybody else? Yeah, the farmers market, we've been having it running for a number of years now, and it's easy to forget some of the things that have been accomplished with having it. I'd like to highlight again and I probably have the term wrong, but the market bucks, where people on social assistance or those people more in need can come and still get access to some of the fresh produce and local goods that is available. And I think it's a good news story, not only from the supporting local business through the market, but also the market itself is kind of a neat way to build some social cohesion, where it's a place where people can come and meet and chat and not feel so isolated, especially during these challenging times. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 5A. This is in the report from SEMA regarding the Arthur wastewater treatment plant. And we have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the report from SEMA regarding the Arthur wastewater treatment plant expansion project, Contract 1, quarterly report Q3 2021. Need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Steve, go ahead.
Just wanted to highlight all the work that has been done in the Arthur wastewater treatment plant. It's a great moving forward for our community down there, and for all the houses that are being proposed in the Arthur area and the allotments that it's going to open up as well. And yeah, just wanted to highlight that, all the good work that was done, and looking forward to seeing it completed.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Anybody else? It's just, not to sound cliched, but, a wastewater treatment plant is not something most people want to see. But it is a very important part of our community development. And, it's because of some of the restrictions we've had over the last year plus, we really haven't had a chance to celebrate the completion or substantial completion of that project and go and have a look at it myself. So I look forward to the opportunity to go and have a tour and see what that many $1 million can buy for us. So it's it's an important milestone. We've been working on it for years. We should be careful not to forget all the effort that went into that and make sure that we celebrate that as an important milestone in our community. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it is a big chunk of money, and unfortunately, most of it's buried and hard to see the accomplishments that are already done there. So.
And let's not lose sight of the fact that at this point, at least, we're still under the original budget by a substantial portion, and hats off to staff and the construction team and the engineers and getting us an operational facility so that our residents don't notice the change. That's no small feat, and to do it under budget is even more commendable. So thanks to all involved in that process. Anything further? Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And I think that's our last of our items for consideration. Any notice of motion this afternoon? Mike?
I think there
Sorry,
was
I'll come
one
back.
additional report, Mayor Lennox.
Oh, right.
In the supplemental.
Thank you for that. That's probably what you had your hand up for, wasn't it, Sherry? Just let me find that here.
On your supplemental 7A, and it's the appointment of the fire department deputy chief.
Yeah, no, I got to find the right piece of paper, Karen.
There's so many, take your pick.
Yeah, what did I do with that? I may have to get you to read that one for me.
I can.
Oh, here it is. I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
I got it here. Okay, this item 7A. This is report DFC 2021-005, appointment of fire department deputy chief. Recommendation reads that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received report DFC 2021-005, appointment of a fire department deputy chief, and further that Council appoint Khalees Luz as deputy chief for the Wellington North Fire Service, and further that bylaw number 54-18 being a bylaw to appoint deputy fire chief be repealed, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the bylaw. Need a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. Hi, Chris. You have anything you'd like to add before we open the floor for discussion?
No, I'll wait for the questions. I'm sure that I can answer the questions and that'll come out in the explanation there. So.
Okay. Open the floor for questions. Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just have one question, and it's really just for clarification because I'm reading the recommendation, and then so we're repealing a bylaw, but it's also the bylaw that, if I'm reading it correctly, it is the one that appointed Marco to be deputy chief. So I'm just looking for some clarification. Is that right?
No, that's not, no, that bylaw was appointing someone else a deputy chief. So that's just repealing that. So Marco's bylaw is still in effect. So this is just covering the other person on the management team. So that one's repealing an old one for appointing someone else a deputy chief.
So we're, if I may, so we're going to have Khalees and Marco. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So the rationale is that the full-time people that are here are on the management team then would be able to cover off for each other, which makes the most sense to all of us because it's not fair to ask someone who has a full-time job elsewhere to get called in and have to deal with the stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And putting them in that position is just, it's not fair to that individual. So this just firms that up, and that if I'm away, then there's two people that can act on my behalf to deal with the lawyers and, or anything else that comes up. They have the ability to do that. So.
And I just have one follow-up question.
Sure. Go ahead, Sherry.
So how does this impact any of our long-term volunteer firefighters then?
It doesn't impact them at all. It just that shows that the three of us are here to support them no matter what, so that we work together as a team, and they need anything from any of us, that we're here to cover off for everyone, for each other, and if they need anything, they can contact any of the three of us because the three of us are here. That's what our full-time job is, to support them in every way possible to make sure that their job as a volunteer remains sustainable and that they don't feel overwhelmed and have to feel a need to quit or anything like that. So it's a big thing for us to be sustainable and growing moving forward, to keep it volunteer and keep them supported and not feeling overwhelmed at all.
Thank you for the clarification, Chief Harrell.
Yeah, no problem, anytime.
Yeah, and I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that anybody who wants to be a volunteer fireman doesn't want to do it for the administration for the most part.
No, that's what we've always said, that their pager doesn't go off to come down to the fire hall to do paperwork. They frown on that to do that part. So we try and take that all away from them and do all that for them. So you're exactly right, Mayor Lennox.
Okay. Dan, I saw your hand up.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to ask, Chris, is this position, like, is there an open competition for this type of position, or how do, like, how would a volunteer be able to move up the ladder, I guess, so to speak, in this scenario?
So that's a great question, Councilor Yates. So we have district chiefs in there. So those are the ones that run the stations and look after the day-to-day stuff in the station and help look after the calls. They respond to the calls and all that stuff. So that's the individuals in each station. So the volunteers can move their way up to district chief. The way the FPPA designates it, the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, says that you have to have a fire chief and then you have to have a deputy chief to act in the fire chief's absence. So that's why the titles were picked for this, and that's why that is identified as that. So I've had a couple over the years that wish to become deputies and fire chiefs, and we definitely train them and can get them some schooling in that, and then they can move on. But it's becoming more and more prevalent in the province that the chiefs and deputies are full-time positions. So for a volunteer to do that, it makes it very, very tough, because as I said, they work full-time during the daytime, and then to try and keep up on what's happening day to day and the stuff that goes on and meetings and all that kind of stuff, it's impossible for them to stay on top of that. So it's becoming that way in numerous towns, that deputies and chiefs are the full-time employees, and then the other titles down below are where the volunteers can keep moving up the ladder to become have more responsibility, but yet keep it sustainable, that it stays volunteer.
Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Chris, for that. But if somebody if somebody wanted to move up there, if maybe they were near retirement or whatever the case may be, or that's what they, maybe that's what they strive to be. How would they be able to do that in this scenario, like in Wellington North and Minto?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox, and maybe just to take some of the pressure off of Chris. So I think maybe what the question is if somebody on the management team, Councillor Yake, was to move on for whatever reason, yeah, there would be an open competition to fill that position. So in theory, a volunteer firefighter who wanted to be the chief and had the appropriate training and say we needed to fill the chief position, they'd certainly be eligible to apply. The instance we're doing now is just to try to get the appropriate bylaws in place to acknowledge the positions as they are. But let's say one of the deputy chiefs moves on for whatever reason, which could happen, it wouldn't prevent a volunteer for applying for the position, assuming they had the appropriate training. So if that, I think, it's certainly not, I don't envision Chief Harrow or any of our deputies leaving immediately, but at some point, things are inevitable and things change over time. Those positions would be advertised and would be competed for, similar to all our full-time positions.
Okay, no, thank you.
And just to further that too, and thanks, Mike, is we do, like, there is training available that if people that have expressed interest in the past to go out beyond just their normal firefighter training, this is more like finance training, budgeting training, that type of thing, that I encourage any of them that have that interest to definitely let us know, and we will get them trained. Because if we can get somebody trained to eventually take over, our jobs if we move on or whatever, then that's the best scenario in my books, is to make sure we have people coming up that are trained and ready to do that. It definitely is a different set of training than just their firefighter training, but I think that's very important too, as a healthy organization as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now I think I can move to notice of motion. Right, Karen?
Yes.
Any notice of motion this afternoon?
I have none.
Bill?
Okay, we'll move on then to community group meeting program report. Anybody have anything they'd like to share with us this afternoon on that? Don't all speak at once. Terry, go ahead.
So just a couple of quick comments. The Mount Forest Aquatics Committee will be happy that council has approved Shelly to be a committee member, and also that we are moving forward with the conceptual designs. We're all eager to get that moving forward so that we can continue to fundraise for that project. And we have a BIA meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at the Leisure Hall. They will set, I think they're going to set their AGM meeting as well tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. Any other reports this afternoon? Lisa, go ahead.
I don't have anything specific to report, except if you notice on the meetings notices announcements, I have a whole ton coming up in the next week. Mount Forest District Chamber of Commerce tonight, Cultural Roundtable Thursday, BMX Park on Tuesday, BIA on the 20th, and then the Mount Forest and the Arthur Chambers of Commerce both have their AGMs. So a lot going on.
Yes, for sure. Anyone else have anything further to talk about this afternoon? Okay, we'll move on to bylaws then. So that recommendation that, let me get this right here. Recommendation that bylaw 94-21, 95-21, 97-21. And do I need 90?
Yes,
and
98.
98-21 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. Any discussion on any of those bylaws? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
And so your confirming bylaw is going to be 99.
Thank you. So the recommendation for the current confirming bylaw is that bylaw number 99-21 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North at its regular meeting held on October 12th, 2021 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Dan. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to adjournment. The recommendation is that the regular council meeting of October 12th, 2021 be adjourned at 4:39 p.m. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. We are adjourned. And as Councillor Hearn alluded to, I draw your attention to the meetings notices and announcements. There's lots of stuff coming up, and I'm sure we're all participating in a number of those. So make sure you have them in your calendar appropriately.
Particularly the October 20th special meeting of council at 2 p.m.
Right on. Okay, thanks, Karen. And thank you all for a lively discussion, and I hope you have a great day.
Have a good week.
Have a great
Bye,
week.
everybody.
Enjoy your leftover turkey.